I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on holiday movies, especially now that you've also become a filmmaker and have made a film that takes place during the holidays?
I love, films that are about holidays, but I just feel that sometimes they are very like in this category of like holiday films, and we have to watch it during holidays, and that's it. And I wanted to make a film that is about, yes, that is taking place at Christmas time, but that we can watch it all year long because it's more than only the setting of Christmas. So for me, it was really like to use this setting as to set the story, but after the story is not necessarily related to like the specificities of Christmas, or I would say like the thing that we are used to see in Christmas movies. I wanted to go in maybe a darker path with other elements that are more about like daily life than only Christmas.
So when you're making a movie like this, is tone important in terms of finding that balance between, the feel-good quality that this genre of filmmaking almost inspires at a fault, but then also finding, the honesty and the reality of life as well that seeps in?
Yes, Christmas time is a good setting for that because as an adult, you have memories and this melancholia that is related to Christmas, and that helps with the story I wanted to tell. And as well, that I feel that I can use this bittersweet tone to tell the story from my adult point of view now. So it's more like reflecting on on my own childhood and see it like, as something that is soft for my characters that are is like in this gentleness, but at the same time that connects with the reality of growing up. That for myself, I experienced it this way. So
What I love about what you've made, and especially in the writing, is that you say so much without having to say it. And it felt like as though, there was so much life explored between both Simone and Florence that, was unspoken. And to create that dialogue without having to say it is so important. When you're writing, are you thinking about those elements as a screenwriter, as a director, as much as you are, a viewer in terms of what you're looking for in story?
it's really my type of writing. Like I love to find a way to say things without dialogue, without so much words. Like I love to play with like the gaze or the look of the character, like how she, like in this case with Little Goodbyes, like how she reacts only with with her eyes, how she, look at her sister, and like how you see like the deepness of their bond. And so I love to go deep into my character and to just feel what they feel and not explain it. So I would say that I prioritize in my script as well emotions rather than facts. Sometimes it's hard because screenwriting you need to put facts as well. But I love to, in my filmmaking, when I'm shooting a scene, I love to really explore this interiority that the character is exploring as well. And that's why in Little Goodbyes, Florence and Simone, it's their real name. So like they were the character herself. Like when we did the audition, I didn't want to force them a character. It was more like, oh, I think I found the character I'm looking for. So like rather they were off camera or on camera, they were the same. So they didn't have like a full script. It was more like improv or like some lines that they already knew, but it was really like a collaboration where I didn't want them to learn a script before.
Talking about like blurring the lines between adulthood and childhood, you've also made a documentary. And this is something I wanted to ask you outside of this, because obviously Oasis came out a few years ago now, but What are your thoughts on documentary being called a genre? Because, like there's been conversations recently, with Guillermo del Toro talking about how animation isn't a genre, it's a medium in which to tell a story. And you've worked now in both creating a narrative that is fictionalized or controlled to a certain extent, but then also, working with both real people and specifically people that you're familiar with. You were a babysitter to Remy and Raphael, and in Oasis, that movie, when you first watch it, if you don't know that it's a documentary, you feel as though you're being brought into a slice of life. And it doesn't feel like anything you've seen before. And to your point before, talking about emotions, you feel it more than just simply thinking about it in an academic sense.
Yes, it's like documentary is for myself more like an approach or a way to tell the story. And I think that documentary is such a large word where we can have like documentary that is really with direct cinema, or you can have more mise en scène, or you can use documentary in many different ways. And for Little Goodbyes, that is a narrative film, a fiction film. I use so many elements of documentary to tell my story, like the way the girls were acting, like the way we collaborate to for the direction, the filmmaking. So it's like I love to blur this, but not as a genre, but like as a tool to, it's like documentary is a tool and fiction and animation is a tool as well to just tell the story. So for me, every film I do and every shoot I do is approached differently because it's this like question that we have is like, what's the best way to tell this story? And for me, using elements of documentary, and in the opposite, like in Oasis, you have elements of fiction that I brought to tell the story. So it's like it can really all be very fluid and not necessarily put into a category as itself to just tell it. So this is where, for me, it's where the fun is.
Were there questions that you asked yourself about Little Goodbyes when you were in that narrative phase that you kept coming back to? Because I've talked to filmmakers before where the questions are always the things that are more intriguing than, say, the answers to the questions. And when a question fascinates a filmmaker, that's the thing that they continue to follow through the process of filmmaking.
The question that I was asking myself, like sometimes is like, what happened if, or like, what do I want to explore with this film? And I didn't have like a particular question for this film, but I remember telling myself like, let's just immerse ourselves in this like Christmas dark universe and like see like what are the limits of this universe? Like, I mean, like, where is the line between adulthood and childhood again? And I really wanted to explore the complexity of it. So maybe in Oasis, it was more about like where this line, where you go behind this line, what happens. But now it was more like, oh, but what if one stays? What if one is like growing up at a different rhythm? So I think I was very interested of exploring the rhythm in a setting that I was creating, I mean, like inventing with my imagination. So Christmas, darkness, mystery, um, sad, like reality of adulthood. Yeah.
When people are talking to you about this film with Little Goodbyes and then also Oasis, do you get asked often about sibling dynamics? Is that something that you're specifically drawn to in terms of the relationships with both of these movies? And is that something that you're more in terms of considering when you're following this kind of narrative? Because I know in another interview you mentioned that you're also working on a feature for Oasis, and it
Yes.
sounds very much like something that Michael Apted would have done with the Up series, or
Mm.
even something more recently with like Richard Linklater, where he explored this with Boyhood and sort of the passage of time.
I'm really interested about passage of time or ritual of life, like how we go into certain steps and what does it mean, like milestones. I like all these steps of life of adulthood, early adulthood, and all the choices you made that goes on and on. And it's like a eternal coming of age, as I would say. And that really interests me now. So it's like if I did Oasis as like this thin line between childhood and teenagehood, and now I'm doing my own coming of age of now I'm just exploring other steps of life.
Do you think at all about whether it is fictionalized or even documentary, how important it is to capture routine on screen? And is that something that you think about even just as a moviegoer, where in terms of how characters interact not only with each other, but just in their environments?
To put my eyes on things that maybe look just daily life or normal, if I would say, like just like a daily routine, but actually there's so much meaning into these slice of life. And I think that for me, it's something very important to get into this, you say like routine, but what I love about me as doing filmmaking and just creation is the accumulation of time or just accumulation in general. I'm so interested about it because I see that when you have this and this and this, and there's like a progression with little action, little slice of life that all put together creates so much meaning and so much deepness into your character, whether it's fiction or documentary, but that it's like, and this is us, like we live our life, and after some years, some days or weeks, we just change and we evolve. And sometimes we don't see it because if I take like little things day after day, you don't see it in the daily life, but you will see it as a whole portrait.
Are these two movies, are there little moments within making them that have sort of resonated with you in terms of moving forward? Is there something that you learned from Little Goodbyes that you're going to keep for the next film, or even just something that you'll want to remember down the line?
In a filmmaking perspective, I had so much, it was so meaningful to me to work with actresses that we could share more than only the fact of acting, like to develop a real relationship with them, to see like how they keep memories of this shoot and like how we create something that is real actually, and this was my intention was like, okay, we are shooting in November, and my shoot, I want that this like festive energy, this Christmas feeling that we will share together for the 5 days of the shoot. And I think that this learning of creating universe that are actually alive, even if it's a fiction, for me that's like a beautiful feeling that I want to continue to explore of like how we create things that are getting real for us, for the team, for the actresses, like all like the meaningful of an experience that goes beyond the fact of filming.
At what point in your process are you thinking about the sound and the location in which those sort of elements come into play? Are you writing about them, or are you thinking about those locations and the sound design in that writing stage? Or is that something that also through your experiences, that when you're on set, you find things or you discover things?
It's very fast in the process where I start to think about the sound, like, oh yes, I know what I think about sound as a feeling. So like, oh, if we're like in this dark alley with like all it's gonna be like all silence, but with the sound. And after in the post-production, I love to personalize some sound. So for example, we have like a very little details, but in this film, I really wanted this subtle shift between are we laughing or crying, like all these elements, and I wanted like a bit of absurdity in some scenes, and we have little details for that, like the door that we record a normal door, and after I was like, oh, what if it was like, a door that has a personality, that has like a little glitch or like little things when she it closes, or what if like it closes in three times and you hear a bell, like little things like that, that personalize objects, and that you don't necessarily notify it but notice it, but you feel it. And for me it's all about like how do you feel it, like the music and everything. But I love to sound is like so so infinite, and it's so important to personalize and get into my universe for me.
It's this time of year where I think like a lot of people find comfort in watching things or, doing things that they're familiar with in routine and talking about that before. Are there any movies for you, whether they're holiday films or not, that you go to this time of year that you feel, is a comfort to you as both a filmmaker, but even just somebody that loves, cinema?
I won't be original, and I would say like Harry Potter every time. Like, at Christmas you will watch it. I love to watch old, it's like the nostalgic feeling. So I love to watch old children's show that I used to, like animation that I used to watch. Um, but there's not film in particular. Like I think I'm more going for a vibe, or Carol. Carol, I will watch it every Christmas. Uh,
Beautiful. And actually, was I was thinking about Carol with the
yeah,
production design of this movie
yes,
because, like Todd Haynes, I think is one of the most underrated filmmakers out there. But like the Christmas elements of Carol, I think are vastly underrated in terms of how they're presented in the moment.
yeah. And you were talking about at the beginning, like how do we categorize like these holiday films? And Carol, for me, the biggest inspiration was the use of the red and green colors, because when you think about the Christmas movies, you have like this flashy colors, shopping center, like big trees and everything. And Carol has like this profound red and green colors in the costumes that are so different when of what we see usually in Christmas movies. And this was the same thing I wanted to do with Little Goodbyes, of like, how can we use the colors that are related to Christmas? So for example, white, green, and red, but in a way that is darker, different, with more deepness in the color, and like using it for the vibe as well, because I was like, yeah, the colors are part of the vibe. So if my vibe is more like heavy, dark, nostalgic, I cannot use a Christmas tree in a red like I would use to see it in Christmas time. And Carol, I think it's like beautifully done.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing this. And Little Goodbyes, when I first saw it, it just kind of it took my breath away because you don't see movies like this where they feel so real and vivid as though they're a memory being projected on the screen. And I cannot wait for whatever you do next. I know you said you're working on, Oasis, but even in the interim, like I think you're one of the most exciting filmmakers to kind of, keep an eye on it. And so for anybody listening or watching this, please go back and watch Oasis. It's on the New York Times
Yes, and
uh, open doc
Hot
page.
Dogs and the Vimeo Staff Pick as well. So you can find in for free to two places on the internet.
Yes, absolutely. And Justine, thank you so much for doing this. It's Little Goodbyes is wonderful, and so getting to talk to you while I still can, because I think in the next few years you're going to be going into really exciting places. But it's really wonderful to see your work, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this interview. It was very nice to talk about it. So thank you.